Well, we're at the end of 2020 and we got our final piece of DLC for Year 5 of Rainbow Six Siege. To wrap up the year in R6 Siege, we've got one new defender, a defender who's got a complete rework, a map rework, and some slight changes here and there. We've had an interesting year of operators so far in Year 5, and later, before the end of the year, maybe, I'll do a Year 5 Siege complete DLC review, but for now, let's focus on Neon Dawn, the latest operation. Let's start with the new operator, Aruni. Aruni is a medium defender who's a bit different to everyone else. She's a medium speed, medium armored operator, and her defensive gadget is the Surya Gate. These gadgets are laser grids that block out windows, floors, roof hatches, and doorways. Working a little similar to Castle, Aruni's gates however cannot be permanently destroyed. If the generator at the top of the door is shot or disabled by Thatcher's EMP grenades, the gate will close and the generator will begin to spark. However, when the sparking stops and the light turns blue, any defender who shoots that generator will then reactivate Aruni's gadget. But Dudi, what do these gates do? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Any attacking operator who runs through one of these gates will lose 40 health points. It'll also destroy any gadget thrown through the laser grid. Now, when a Surya Gate either zaps a player or destroys something like a grenade being thrown at it, it'll deactivate the gate to recharge. It's worth noting though that deploying a Surya Gate over a doorway, it'll leave a gap at the bottom for drones to get through. The gadget works great in the closing seconds of a round where attackers may be forced to run through the Surya Gate or try to peek around it to get a defender. Also a first, Aruni is armed with either the P10 Roni, which is Mozzie's submachine gun, or the Mark 14 EBR marksman rifle, which is Dokubi's rifle. The first time we've ever seen a defender with a marksman rifle, which can change sights up quite a bit. Aruni will also have the PRB 92 sidearm and either barbed wire or a bulletproof camera. Now I found depending on the room you're defending, you should alter the weapon that you're using. If you're in a small space, the rifle might be cumbersome and a little bit awkward. Aruni is also the first operator with prosthetics, as she's seen her fair share of battles. Now Aruni's left arm and leg are prosthetic, and the animated cinematic of Aruni and her relationship with Thermite is actually pretty cool. Aruni will fire her gadgets from her left arm, a bit like Spider-Man if you ask me, and her melee is a punch with some brute force rather than using the butt of the gun or a knife. Aruni can even smash some decent sized holes in walls too, due to the prosthetics. Now while Aruni's gadget is useful, I found that her marksman rifle can be a little bit wonky with the hit detection personally. There have been a couple occasions where I've lined up shots and fired, and not only did the target survive these shots, but they took no damage.
Fuck off, man, that was a...
Fuck off, man, that was a...
However, her P10 Roni I found very useful in some situations. Now on top of that, we got some more updates that you may or may not like. Attacker Hibana can now choose to fire her Kairos launcher in either 2, 4 or 6 shots, and the crosshair will change depending on your selection. Jaeger's ADS now has a cooldown of 10 seconds after destroying a device, but the ADS will now have an unlimited amount of charges instead of 2. Echo's drone is now no longer invisible, but don't worry, it's still sometimes quite hard to find. Ash now has 3 breaching rounds instead of 2, but the damage has moved from 90 HP to 50 HP per damage. Wamai can now only use 4 magnets rather than 5, and some small changes here and there like Dokubi's stun grenades are now replaced with frag grenades. On top of that, of course, we have a new map rework in Skyscraper. Now just like all the map reworks, it will take some time to get used to and familiar with the map, but most importantly, any runouts or defenders will have 1 second before they're highlighted, making it riskier to do runouts. Previously, Lord Tachanka's gadget was a deployable turret that had a bulletproof blast shield in front of it. Previously, Tachanka was a bit of a joke operator, but he was an original operator and people loved him for whatever reason. Tachanka's gadget and loadout has changed though. His gadget isn't the turret anymore, he'll fire explosive incendiary rounds. It's worth noting that the charge will bounce off the wall a couple of times before detonating, and they'll make a small area of fire, a little bit like Goyo's shield. The gadget has a total of 10 rounds and they only hold 5 at a time, but the reload time for this weapon is a bit long as you'll have to manually reload each chamber. His previous gadget isn't gone though, it's now his primary weapon. The RP-46 light machine gun is now, of course, his primary weapon and deals a decent amount of damage and breaks destructible walls pretty easily. Now the LMG can only have a reflex sight that cannot be removed and there are no other attachments. Now seeing that as there are no grip attachments, get ready for the recoil. Tachanka's new gadget works pretty well, especially for someone who's trying to shoot you in the back and you want them to stop chasing you around the map. Fire a couple of these bad boys off behind you, and if the attacker chases you, they'll take damage through the fire or they'll see the fire and back off. It also works a little bit like Smoke's gadget, buying you more time if the attackers are trying to push or flushing them out of a corner. Operation Neon Dawn does what every Siege DLC does. It keeps the game alive, changes players, and forces you to adapt to new team loadouts and situations. For consoles, there's also a next-gen patch if you're playing on the PlayStation 5 or the Series X. Now, of course, I'll be taking a look at Cyberpunk 2077 next, but that game is so huge my review won't be out straight away. I'll provide regular impression videos before I give my official review for anyone interested. Outside of Cyberpunk, I'll be reviewing Siege Year 5 DLC as a whole, my Game of the Year picks, and maybe even a giveaway. If you did enjoy the video, consider checking out my other videos or subscribing to the channel.